Hello, and welcome to SCG Global Spin. Your host today is Shireen J. Wilkinson. Shireen is a partner at Wilkinson 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 Chambers and is engaged in litigation and general practice. Joining Shireen is Alfredo A. Guzmán. Alfredo is a partner at Guzmán Ariza and is a top-ranked attorney in the hospitality, entertainment, corporate, real estate, and sports industries. We also have Carlos W. Simons, QC. Carlos is a senior partner at Miller Simons O Sullivan and focuses his practice on serious commercial and civil litigation.
Good afternoon, Carlos and Alfredo, and good afternoon to our SCG legal family. We're here today. Carlos, as you know, is the senior partner at Miller Simons O Sullivan in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And Alfredo is a partner in Guzmán Ariza. Alfredo, I'm saying that right, yes?
Right.
And he's an attorney at law in the Dominican Republic. So here we are, 3 attorneys from the Caribbean region, and hopefully we're bringing you some sunshine and warmth to wherever you are. All right, guys, let's get started. We're living in the new normal due to the advent of COVID. And for us in the legal industry, I know it's brought a lot of changes. So for us here in Grenada, for example, as of the 25th of March, 2020, we had to learn almost overnight how to learn to work remotely. And it was legislated that if you weren't a non-essential business, you had to work from home or you had to lock down. And so we didn't want to lock down and we had to learn to work from home. Carlos, do you want to share with us your experience in the Turks and Caicos and what has your firm's experience been like with the advent of COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's very much as you have described, but perhaps a little more drastic. It sort of came with. My impression is that it sort of came upon us very suddenly. In the first, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of the pandemic, we did very, very well, keeping the numbers low and keeping people protected. Part of that was as a result of the lockdown that you described and the necessity to work from home. So within our firm, in the early days of the lockdown, things are a little bit more relaxed now. But in the early days of the lockdown, we were sort of scheduling both staff and partners so that we can social distance in the office. We have, it's not a large office, but in terms of TCI, it is quite substantial. A staff of 23, but our arrangement is that we have people sitting across from each other. We couldn't, with social distancing, we couldn't continue with that. So we had like 6 support staff, 2 partners for weeks on end. And like you say, we had to learn to work from home. We couldn't afford to lock down. We have clients to service. So that's been our experience. It's been very trying.
Yeah, I could even. You have a staff of 23. We have a staff here of 16, and like you, we're not at all in all of the circumstances processed to social distance. So it was a bit of a challenge, getting people to understand, well, look, you really can't sit next to your colleague that you've been sitting next to for the last 10 years. We have to move you at least 6 feet away, sort of thing. And then we had to reconfigure our spaces to do that, But Alfredo,
and it does affect the staff, because over time they grow they gravitate
That's right. Exactly. That's what's happening in our lunchrooms, actually, because they're still kind of gravitating back to each other now that they can
Exactly.
be in the office with each other. But Alfred, I'm going to ask you the same question. So, how has it impacted you? But before that, I have to just give a little disclosure. I have a Dominican Republic connection. I have a niece and two nephews who live there. So,
Okay, so you have
shout out to Kinara, Kyle, and Keenan.
yeah, so as in Shireen's case, the Dominican Republic was shut down at the end of March completely. So we, of course, as a law firm, we were part of the non-essential businesses that had to shut down or go remotely, which most businesses that could did that. So it was like Carlos says, a very swift change, a very quick moment to adapt to a reality that we had not been prepared for really. We did have the technological setup, if you wish to put it that way, but we were not applying most of the tools that were there for us to be able to work entirely in a remote space compared to a presential one. So, I mean, as a firm, of course, we had to set up safety protocol manuals right away, just in preparation, in the expectancy of the opening, which we wish had been sooner, but we stayed for almost 4 months, as almost everyone did, for 4.5 months, and we had to change the entire setup of the firm, limit the workers that are currently at the offices now that the shutdown has been lifted. I think we are probably around maybe less than 55% in at the office right now, and the rest is remote. Uh, Most partners are remote just for safety measures. We're and some are doing uh, only going to the offices half a day, just as a precaution. And yeah, for us, it was a challenge, both because of we had to adapt very quickly to that new reality. But of course, the advantage, not advantage, but the reality was that everyone was in the same spot. So they all understood in one way or the other that everyone was limited to what they had to work with at the time.
Carlos, when you said it seemed very sudden, for me, I remember back in December, I guess it was, coming off of the Christmas vacation, and you heard about the first case or the first few cases out in China. And you watched countries in the Far East wrestling with the impact of COVID. But for me, I felt it creeping in very slowly. So you heard about it in the Far East, you heard about it in Europe, and then you watched it out there, and then all of a sudden, you're right. Even though you were watching it out there, you somehow didn't think it was coming, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was here. And overnight, we had to learn to live with this new normal, because when they shut our airport down, we effectively, just self-isolated ourselves. Once we shut our airport and once we shut our seaports, we isolated ourselves, and then we went into the physical lockdown of being in quarantine and so forth. But yeah, so when that happened, what was the impact like on your firm? Alfredo, you said, you're 55% out. So that means you're still 45% out of the office. You're 55% out at the firm, but 55% out of office, 45% out of office. Carlos, what's it like for you? Are you all back out to work, or are you working remotely? How are you functioning?
No, not at all. We're not. We have a number, including certain of the partners like me, who are in that vulnerable age range. We encourage them to work from home. And ever since the pandemic, we used to be sitting, I'm at the end of my dining room table, and this is my workstation. I go into the office to take appointments, to meet clients, to sign documents, but otherwise I work from home. And
Okay.
there are two of my partners who do the same. My other partners, they're in the office on a regular basis, but they only have on any given day about 30% of the support staff. Because we have arranged a scheduling system, rotation, which brings in 30% of the staff on any particular day, and the rest of them will either be off for that day or half a day, or they will be working from home. We've given them the access to the systems in order for them to work from home. Because I mean, one of our principal activities within the firm is real estate, and one of the government's ways of encouraging business during this, what has now become a recession, there have been a number of reductions in stamp duties, transfer taxes. And so we need those skills, whether it's in the office or at home. And so we've had to give staff members the facility to access the offices, the practices, systems and programs and procedures for doing that.
The number of staff is increasing by the day because the judicial branch also was shut down, as in most countries, and in some cases, in a lot of the departments, it opened a virtual court system, you could say, where the virtual hearings, everything was online. And now the judicial branch open up all the courts, but there is still the option to go to hearings virtually if both parties agree to. But slowly but surely, the number of because of that, the litigation department is starting off. The number of personnel will be increased in all offices. We understand.
I go to court from my library in the office because all of our hearings are now digital for the foreseeable future, and we've been advised of that. So at least until December this year, and certainly maybe even into the first quarter of next year, 2021, all of our civil matters certainly will remain digital, and so I can remain in the comfort of my library and go to court. I miss the interaction, though. I don't know about you guys, particularly for
that's that's the experience that we've been having here as well. We've had a number of we've just had a new Chief Justice join us. I don't know, maybe December, January, and since she's been in office, she's issued a number of practice directions to govern the online hearings that you're describing. And so we've been attending court on Zoom as you have.
I really do miss the interaction. There's something about being in court and it gets your adrenaline flowing and you feed off of the energy of the judge and counsel on the other side and your clients. So I miss that for sure. But I mean, the healthy is better, but I do kind of miss that sometimes.
In our
Well,
case,
hopefully,
the Chief Justice, which is the head of the judicial branch of the Supreme Court, was trying to keep the courts virtual for some time, as in your case, Shireen. But the president of the Bar Association filed a lawsuit against that because of the many yeah, because of the many deficiencies on the system for some. I mean, I have to admit that there were some, a lot of advantages to it, but there's some deficiencies as to the access to internet and technology, the expense some lawyers would need to have, et cetera, et cetera. They filed a lawsuit based on that, and they actually won. So they forced the judicial branch to open up the courts, basically. That was a couple less than a month ago, I think.
Okay. So, but moving away from litigation and loving court life, what's the economic impact thus far, if you know, and I'm not asking you to pull random information, but what has the economic impact been like in both of your jurisdictions? Alfredo, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, going back to the courts, of course, the litigation department has been one of the single most harmed departments, we could say, because since March they were simply shut down, and there was nothing to do. You couldn't even service a notice because the bailiffs are court appointed officers, so they were included in that shutdown. So that was basically the litigation department was hit very hard. Also, of course, as in all of our cases in our countries, the hospitality and real estate industry also suffered, especially during the shutdown, because everything was closed as well. I mean, you could plan deals, but you could never close them because the registrar of titles was not open. You could not pay title transfer taxes in our the equivalent of your stamp duties, Carlos. So you were basically tied by your hands, and they were the judicial branch did open up some specific departments. For example, you were able to apply for title searches online, and that helped, at least begin with some processes until things went back on to the new normal that we are operating today. But I would say that at the firm, those would be the two main main practices that were mostly affected. Yes.
Right. Okay, Carlos.
well, the effect for us has been devastating. I would imagine that as a firm, our revenue would be down by about 30%, if not more. So, and it's because of this, Alfredo and Shireen. The economy itself is so dependent upon the tourist trade. Everything depends upon the tourist trade. If the planes don't fly from New York and Chicago and London, there's nothing happening. If the hotels are not full of guests, there's nobody to buy real estate. There's nobody to form offshore business corporations, companies. So far as litigation is concerned, there's nobody to disagree with other people and and give you the opportunity to resolve disputes in court. So I think what I'm saying is the TCI economy virtually collapsed, and I think this year 2020 is going to go down as one of the most difficult periods in the economic life of the country. As Alfredo says, I mean, there were periods, long periods, when essential government offices were simply closed. You couldn't, you couldn't pay stamp duties. You couldn't clear customs goods. The supermarkets were closed. The hardware stores were closed. There was just nothing doing, and we're just now beginning to gradually open up again. And we're hoping that when we turn the corner of 2021, things are going to get a little brighter. But for the last 6-8 months, it's been very, very difficult.
So I think we've all had the same experience in terms of when the shutdown hit, our overall economies took a hit. So like you, Carlos, tourism is one of our engines, one of the that drives our country. And so when that ground to a halt, together with the Tertiary Educational Institute of St. George's University, which is the second largest employer in Grenada, when those main economic engines ground to a halt, Grenada pretty much just went and it pulled the brakes on everything, right? And I mean, with all of that, with the shutdown, of course, came all of the ancillary stuff that had to shut down. So landlords who were renting rooms to students, the car rental industry, persons who were renting vehicles to students, restaurants, bars, supermarkets, as you say, supermarkets, hardware stores, all these other ancillary businesses, and the tourism industry, not just hotels, it's tour operators, tour guides, vendors in the market, crafts people, everybody took a bare hit when we shut down. And I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we're fine for a week, a month, 2 months, but when you start seeing 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and it's not looking like anything is coming to an end, you start worrying, about what is going to happen, as you say, Carlos, after we turn the corner. What's it going to look like after we turn the corner?
Yeah, in our case in the DR, it is there are estimates that show that at the worst point of the shutdown, employment wise, at least close to 35% or more of the registered employees at the Social Security system had been furloughed. So imagine that in the entire country. So imagine the impact on the working class, low and low middle working class community, what that must felt, how that must have felt. And luckily the government set up a relief program for companies and employees in general, called the FASE, which basically allowed the companies to furlough their employees, and they would contribute a minimum percentage of the wages in favor of the employee, as well as percentage of what the employer would have had to pay for that. So I mean that has helped a lot, but we're asking ourselves what's going to happen when December comes, which is when that program expires. Still, for example, in the tourism industry, we're as of the close of September, we are at 30% occupancy right now. So imagine 70%, like probably more than half of those hotels employment workforce is in the streets, furlough. So it's a very, very dim scenario that we're facing in that sense in the the employment sector.
I hear you, because from our Ministry of Finance, the preliminary estimates indicate that our economy will experience a double-digit decline in our fiscal year. And the disruption in the economic activity has damaged our public finance. So again, from the Ministry of Finance, our revenue declined sharply, sharply, with the closure of the borders at March, in particular the closure of the airport from March to August, when we started having regional flights, and then March to October when we opened up internationally. But we still have to keep other measures of containment in place. And so our financial situation, like you, Alfredo, is somewhat dire. What we were able to do, though, the government established what they call a COVID Economic Support Secretariat, which offered economic relief in a timely manner, but it was only to certain sectors. So like bus operators, taxi drivers, tour guides, hotel employees, market vendors, some restaurants and bars. But they cannot continue the relief indefinitely. We just don't have the
enough revenue income or
to do that. So while we don't, and we also don't have the furlough option. So it was either you could keep your job and rotate it depending on the employer, or you lost your job. And so therefore we also have an issue with unemployment, figures being higher than they've ever been for quite some time. But we do have, some pictures of some assistance, and I can't say what that is yet because it hasn't been publicly disclosed, but some assistance coming our way, hopefully. And there's still some soft lending through the local bank, the local Grenada bank, which is the Grenada Development Bank. So there's some soft lending facilities managed there. But let me ask this guys a question. I'm a woman. A mask has now become my fashion accessory. So I don't just wear a white mask. I wear a pretty mask, and I wear masks to match my outfits. So, but how has daily life changed for you every day? What does it look like for you?
Well, I think a mask is going to be a permanent article of clothing, at least for a while. So far, I'm only doing the white N95 or whatever they're called, but I can see myself getting some really pretty masks. Handsome.
Mask to match my outfits, I have to tell you.
Made out. But at first, here in TCI, people, were not like taking this thing very seriously, and you didn't really see people wearing masks, even though the government was daily putting out material to persuade people to wash hands, wear masks, all that sort of stuff. But now, anytime you're outdoors, away from your home, in any environment, and particularly if there are other people around, everybody is wearing a mask. And except for families, people are social distancing. So I think the seriousness of it has hit home, and that is one of the ways in which life has changed. You just don't go to restaurants. You don't sort of gather at bars and restaurants in the way you used to.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even congregate at close family homes the way you used to, because of course you want not only to protect members, particularly elderly members of your family, but also your own family. People are using social media, I suppose, more than they used to.
That's right. That's right. Alfredo, you were saying?
Oh yeah, the same here. Everyone wearing mask it's mandatory by law. So you can get fined if you don't use them. But I think in general, although the rules have been the same, it is funny how you see that the perception of the threat by the people, they seem not to appreciate as the time goes. But before, everyone was very scared at their homes, not going to restaurants, not going to anywhere public. Now you see more people are, I think, adapting. So that's the new reality that we're all experiencing. Of course, everything is online and by social media in the families.
It sounds something similar to what we experienced, because initially when we were at home, I never even knew there was such a thing as a Zoom party. Well, I partied on Zoom till, I don't know. But then also, like Rep, it seems, we started, because we were enclosed, borders were closed, and we were containing the community spread, certainly for us at Grenada. We kind of got relaxed, and you weren't seeing as much of the mask wearing. People were starting to gather, and when the beaches were reopened, it was like, woohoo, everything just reopened, and we were quite happy in that bubble for a while. But now that we've reopened the international borders via the airport, and unfortunately we've had 3 new cases, I think it is, since the reopening of the borders. People have become a lot more conscious, and they're going back into, okay, we know we have to wear a mask because we're at risk. People are coming in, people are coming with COVID, and so we don't want to have to go through a shutdown again, because that's the last thing that the country can afford.
Even worse if it is in Christmas.
I know, exactly. Who wants a lockdown at Christmas?
Scared of. So
yeah,
you mentioned the airport openings. Here we are also completely open.
Okay.
We used to have, I don't know, it was back in August that they lifted middle of September, the requirement to have yourself tested and provide a PCR test upon entry. But now there's no test requirements.
Now you can just enter the Dominican Republic?
Nope, not at all. You can get, random sampling, but quick tests, nothing like.
So basically, you have to be responsible for yourself, and you have to act responsibly.
Exactly, but the industry as a whole has adapted a lot to this. I mean, they have adapted to international protocols on safety and cleaning, and I think that's what they're selling the world, that they are ready to receive guests, tourists with this reality.
Yeah, so we've been receiving guests, because it's not all doom and gloom, even though it might.
We have to see the positive.
Well, that's interesting. If I can just share what's happening in TCI. The borders are open now, but the resorts are all are not opened as yet. The height of the season really begins mid-November.
Here as well.
Exactly. However, the largest resort which is the Beaches Resort and Spa, has not opened, and all of the smaller resorts are watching what Beaches does, because it's Beaches that fills the planes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're not open, and unfortunately they're in a dispute with the government involving millions of dollars. And Shireen and Alfredo, this is a resort that employs more people than the government does. This is the largest employer in the TCI. So when I say that the economy is dominated by tourism, and then I say that tourism is dominated by beaches, then you understand where beaches is in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Whilst the university is our second largest employer, one of our big employers as well is Sandals. Now, Sandals, we have one resort, which is Sandals La Source, and they actually did lead the way in reopening. They actually reopened on the 1st of October, bringing back all of their staff, and they welcomed their first set of guests on the 5th of October. I dare say, and I would have to check with management, but the last I'd heard was that occupancy was 28%, or a little, maybe 25. So just about a quarter, a quarter full. But they're whole, and like you, they don't fill planes, so they need the other resorts to open up to start bringing in more guests. But that's taking its time slowly but surely. Some of our resorts are open, but they more need to reopen and reopen fully to fill those planes and bring the guests, particularly from the US, which is still a bit scary, but it's a fact of life, and from the UK, which is equally as scary, but it's a fact of life. Those are our main markets.
Well, I think what we've reached the point here, I think, where we're forced to say, look, we cannot kill the economy. We have to open up, and we have to rely on people to act responsibly. There is a testing procedure to be done before you board a plane in New York or Chicago or wherever. The test must be less than 5 days old. You're hoping that it's going to be done properly, and it's going to be reliable, and that the tourists, when they come, is not going to cause a spike in cases.
Hopefully it'll be contained, because we have been opened up internationally, as I was saying, but we've only had 4 cases. Awkward, as we say in Grenada, that we don't, see a spike, because 4 cases is a lot for us. We're at 28 in total, and for us, that's a lot of cases.
So I mean, going back to the positive, I think that we also see some light at the end of the tunnel. In the Dominican Republic's case, as I have said in your initial meeting, since the country is pretty much diversified industry-wise, the tourism sector itself does not account to more than 15% of the country's economy. So I just received an investment research paper from Bank of America Security yesterday, stating that while during 2020 the GDP will decrease to 7%, they expect a V-shaped recovery of the Dominican economy by 2021, of growing up to 8.4%. So that's a set of good news that we received yesterday, and that the Ministry of Finance shared with the entire country in today. So
well, that's very encouraging for you guys, I'm sure.
Companies and industry, free zones, which is a large sector, culture, and a lot of other economy companies that form part of the economy. And to finish off with the tourism part, the government has also done its job in trying to help the tourism sector work during this initial stages of the recovery by authorizing self-financing for local tourism, and that's what basically has helped them to open up since August until now, and given life to sort of a breathe of life to the tourism sector. And also, they recently approved travel insurance for all tourists up until December. So from
Who's covering the insurance? The government?
the government-owned bank, Banco de Reservas, through an
Okay.
agreement with the government, they're going to be covering travel insurance for any tourists that may fall sick with COVID in the country. So that's
okay.
another benefit which I share with you, just in case you have, you can share with your officials too, because that's that's an offering that not everyone's doing in these times, and that's one of the factors that potential tourists see when trying to decide whether or not to travel right now. Okay, so what happens if I fall sick in this or other country? What kind of treatment would I receive?
So, Carlos, here's one for you. Based on what you were saying about tourism being your driving industry, what changes are you anticipating, or what changes do you see down the pipeline for tourism going forward? Bearing in mind that beaches seems to have a great input in what happens in the tourist sector.
Yes, for the time being, but there is a large hotel development, the Ritz-Carlton, which is a 12-story. For us, that's a skyscraper. And I think when
that
when that comes on stream, beaches is going to be may not be the largest tourist facility. But yeah, you say, how do I see it? We are so invested in tourism. I mean, I don't think the travel industry is just going to go away. It's
right.
Yeah, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back very strong. And so I think once the virus is controlled one way or another, whether it is by a vaccine or whether it is by learning to live with it, more accommodatingly. I think that the travel industry is going to come back very strong, and I think that that the TCI economy is going to boom afterwards.
For us, we're anticipating negative growth this year, of course, because of the COVID.
Yeah, this year, definitely. I should have added this. We're expected to lose 25, 26% of GDP. That's a huge knock.
Yeah, that's a huge number. Yeah, we're negative growth based on the tourism authority's information. In fact, projections for 2020 compared to 2019, we're down from stayover visitors, we're down 75%, from cruise visitors, we're down 52%, from yachting visitors, we're down 52%. So overall, we're down 59%. So negative growth. But again, always looking for the silver lining, we have some recommendations again from the Tourism Authority of what they want to do for what was the short term, which has already passed with the reopening of the borders, but what they want to do for the medium term and for the long term. And one of the medium terms is engaging the locals in staycations. I'm a big fan of staycations because I don't have to get on a plane and I can just pack my car and go to wherever I'm going. But engaging locals more in staycation in what's called a Pure Grenada Just For You campaign. And there's another branch of it called Paradise at Home. And then, regional marketing. So start to get the region back in, get the international arena back in the long term. So we move more into trying to go beyond the traditional market. So where we were in Berlin in Germany, go beyond Berlin. Where we were in Toronto in Canada, go beyond Toronto, go beyond New York and Miami. So go into, like you said, Chicago, go into Midwest, go into the West, go into California, and just basically open us up to the world, but safely. So that's long-term project for the tourism authority.
Yeah, I think that staycation, as you mentioned, is a trend that is also catching up here in the area, like I said. And you
just pack a bag.
we've seen a huge demand after these promotions and state sponsored financings came up.
Here's a question I meant to ask before, and I don't want to belabor it too long. But when the country was in lockdown and we were going into the hurricane season, which turned out to be a very active hurricane season, how did your governments and how did your people, your citizens, cope with the thought of, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of a pandemic and we may be hit by a hurricane?
Well, it was very scary here because you will I think it was 2017, 3 years ago, we had two back-to-back very terrible storms.
I remember.
And although this hurricane season was very active, they seem to have passed us by. So we were very, very lucky in that sense. But it was very scary. Every time there was, a wave out in the Atlantic to the east of you guys, we were worried. We were worried.
Gonzalo for us, which was at the time mere depression, which turned into a storm overnight. That was the closest, again, knockwood, that we came to storm affecting us. We've had lots of depressions passing over, including over the weekend with some thunder and lightning and some heavy rainfall. But yeah, thank you. It was a busy season, and people were getting, apart from pandemic weary, they were getting scared of the thought that I may not have a roof if a storm passes, and what's going to happen? How am I going to be able to socially distance in a hurricane shelter? That was a real concern.
It could only have made things 10 times worse.
Yeah.
We were barely spared, but we received a lot of flooding from one hurricane this season. And as you said, in the end, what you saw in the news, people were basically trying to get out of their houses. Forget the mask, forget everything. We were really scared of what was to come. If there was going to be another breakout, but it didn't happen, luckily.
So before we wrap up, guys, what do you think are the opportunities for all of our countries going forward? I mean, for us at Grenada, for example, I can see us focusing on agriculture and not being so reliant on imports. So especially on fruits and vegetables and some meat and meat byproducts. We have a great opportunity to support small businesses and focus, grow and develop indigenous businesses. What do you see for your country and for your firms? I see great things for our firm as well in terms of learning new business models, learning new areas of practice. And we're learning every day as we go along. But what do you guys see for your firms?
Well, I think if I may, Alfredo, I think in Turks and Caicos, I hope it teaches us the wisdom of diversification, because we cannot, I think, continue to depend so heavily on the travel industry, tourism, cruise ship visits, and that kind of thing. And so, even though we are limited in terms of agricultural land, I think the government is going to begin to pay more attention to develop what we have, and also to protect and develop the fishing industry, which is historically what we are. We are a series of fishing villages, really, you know. And I think there's great potential if the waters and the marine resources are protected and harvested responsibly. And so I think that is a direction in which the government will turn its attention when this is all over. So far as our firm is concerned, I think we've cooked really well, but there are a couple of things that I think we will learn that, and we have learned that you don't necessarily have to have a full complement of staff in the office to be productive. You know, it doesn't matter where a person is, so long as the work product is being pushed out. That's all it needs. That's all it takes. There's going to need, yeah. And the partners, of course, are going to be focused on face-to-face with clients, because that's how you develop business. The support staff, we've learned, can do their thing from wherever they are. And we have learned to appreciate them for that, I think.
Great.
Yeah, so in our case, as a country as well, as Carlos mentioned, although we are diversified as it is, the new government, which started out, went into power this last August, is given the whole worldwide situation, economic and health situation, they're trying to develop other areas or other areas in the economy, and somewhat aggressively, because of the fact that, you know, because of the COVID situation and the effects that it has had with the current economic sectors, that they're seeing other resources that could be exploited for the benefit of the country. That, for example, just last week they signed the first offshore drilling exploration deal with a Houston company. We also have, I don't know if you know, we have the largest open pit gold mine in the Western Hemisphere and second in the world. And there are probably two other sectors in the country which may have mining resources compared to that, and that is another area that the government is thinking of developing further, because they have been passively, you know, one single operator. It's large enough that they basically bailed out the country together with the financial sector 2 weeks ago. They were on a fiscal reform, and it was halted. The government is also planning on developing a public-private partnership, a lot of public partnership projects with a new law that was approved, and they're going to basically try to finance their way out of the crisis through those type of partnership for mainly infrastructure and other large projects. So they're also aggressively promoting that way of investing in the country. That's more.
I'll tell you one thing that the government of Grenada certainly has had to look at very closely. Health has always been one of our issues, and so health has become a driving issue. So we've had to take a hard, cold, calculated look at our health sector, and our general hospital, which is a primary hospital. They are looking at it, and I'm not sure what partners they are engaging with, as you mentioned, private-public partnerships, but I'm not sure which partners they are engaging with. But there are talks afoot, to get it up to speed, because as the primary hospital in the country, we suffered in terms of lack of beds in case we had a spike of more than, let's say, 20. God forbid that we don't. But that's another thing that we have an opportunity to, at this point, to take by the reins and address, because it has proven to us that we need to invest in healthcare, because the health of your citizens is the wealth of your country,
Shireen, the university you mentioned earlier, is that a medical school, isn't it?
Yes, it's an offshore university. It's St. George's University.
Is it a medical school?
Yeah, well, it started off as a medical school, branched out into veterinary sciences, and now they also offer bachelor's degrees. So you have, but that's on a limited scale. That's not all. It's still mainly a medical school. So guys, it's been great catching up with you. It's been great having this chat, talking about what's happening with us, with our firms, and with our islands. And so with that, if we don't have anything, if anyone has anything else to add, I'll let you add it now. But with that, I'm done.
Just a bit of trivia. I was just going to say, to Alfredo that I have a closer connection with his country than you do. My wife is Dominican.
Oh, thank you.
We all got connected, Alfredo. I got niece and there. So we're all connected to you, Alfredo. You are the link.
I'm the link.
You're the link.
Right. Okay, I think Diane devised that.
It's all Diane's fault.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. It's been great. It's been great, guys. So thank you.
Thanks.
And everyone have a good afternoon. And that concludes our recording. Thank you for joining us today. You can find this and many other episodes at scgglobalspin.com.